Welcome and good afternoon. I'm so, looking forward to this sharing this afternoon with our very good friend Patrick Kissane from BurgerIT. And I got to say, it's a very timely conversation. You know, we've been trying to lock Patrick in for this particular sharing this particular topic for over 2 months now, and he's been so inundated and busy. Not only leading his team and his many customers around the world, but definitely, at the forefront of being a spokesperson, a go-to, a sought-after expert as it relates to everything IT, and in recent years, everything regarding how to protect your business, protect your home, as it relates to cybersecurity. So, a little bit of a background on Patrick Kissane. He has been known as the IT guy, and has certainly been everything IT since leaving university in the mid-90s. He worked for the Australian Grand Prix, Commonwealth Games, Walt Disney Special Events Group, before starting his own business at the turn of the new century. And since that time, he has consulted to companies on all sizes, from one-man bands to business with hundreds and thousands of staff. His business is, a well-sought-after business. And one of his specialties, and this is why I love Patrick, he's an alumni client of Business Benchmark Group, one of the first and original Board of Directors 12 clients as well. So power to you, Pat, and the business you've got on to build. But in saying that, one of the things he's really well known for is he doesn't expect a lot of money. You don't need to spend a lot of money. He does the best to protect you from spending a lot of money, to have the latest and the greatest, the most effective tools to keep your business, the IT side of things, but most importantly, in the most recent years, your business protected as it relates to cybersecurity. So he's a well sought after person as it relates to elite sporting organizations, like most of the AFL teams, NRL teams, and the A-League soccer teams have the access to BurgerIT's service and products, and he looks after their databases, and just a phenomenal journey in business as well. So in the last 3 years, Patrick has pivoted BurgerIT, the business, to tackle the chaotic world of cybersecurity. And I do warn everybody that's just about to sit through the next 45 to 50 minutes, I do warn everybody that ignorance to your peril. And I know for me, the last week when Scott Morrison said we are under attack by an actor state, that was a time of holy moly. And I just needed to literally text Pat and say, mate, are we okay? And literally within 3.5 seconds, it came back. He said, what do you reckon, mate? Of course you are. Now, in saying that, we always need to be on our toes, and having an organization like BurgerIT supporting Business Benchmark Group is to our advantage. But that doesn't mean we are safe. So, in the last 3 years, Patrick has pivoted BurgerIT to become known as a go-to cybersecurity consultancy / service-based business by leveraging the cutting-edge security tools provided by Microsoft specifically. He has been able to bring a systematic and focused approach to taking his clients to the cloud in a safe and secure way, leading to huge efficiencies and transforming their businesses along the way. In 2020, recently, unbeknown to him, we were going to enter the COVID-19 space where someone just said, you need to go home and run your businesses, every one of Patrick's clients, go home and do it in a digital sort of world. But I guess for us at Business Benchmark Group, working with Patrick for a very long time as it relates to our IT and everything IT and cybersecurity, we were 2 years already in the practice of having everything in the cloud and being ready to translate everything we did face-to-face to digital, and we're not looking back. And I'm sure every one of you, particularly the clients in this sharing this afternoon, will attest to how magnificent that move forced upon us has been. So over to you, Patrick, and congratulations on continuing your education in this space and being on the journey to a master's in cybersecurity. Power to you and welcome, and I look forward to your sharing, Pat.
Thanks, Stefan. Thank you for having us today. Looking forward to being able to scare the pants off people a little bit, just in terms of how much at risk we all are. But luckily, there are definitely some solutions we can put in place to kind of protect ourselves from some of that stuff that Scott Morrison was talking about the other day. Thanks again to Scott Morrison for trying to push my business along. It was my own little stimulus package that he did there. So we're going to move into the presentation pretty much straight away. And Stefan, I'm sure you're going to jump in as we go, just with some thoughts about and some questions. And anybody out there in the virtual meeting room, please pipe up with any questions that you've got, and they'll come through to us as we go. So this is all about how do we use cybersecurity, how do we best protect ourselves from cybersecurity as small businesses. We are a target. A lot of people think that we're not, but unfortunately we are a big target. So along the way here, we'll talk about how we get to this place, what cybersecurity actually looks like, the kind of threats that are facing us, just how exposed we are as small businesses, and the kind of things we can put in place to protect our businesses going forward. So a little bit about me. Stefan mentioned a bit of my history, so I won't dwell on that too long. Feel free to reach out to me if you've got any questions about this or you would like to know more information. There's a little slide there of some clients that we've got that we've been looking after for some time, some of them for almost 20 years. But moving straight into the presentation, what are the cyber threats out there? What is it that we're looking to protect ourselves from? And that landscape is constantly changing. Nation states, as the Prime Minister mentioned the other day, is something that is a little bit new to us, although it has been obviously at a higher level for some time. One of the problems that we've got is that these nation states, they have whole departments of people who their only job is to try and cause a ruckus, cause some commotion in high level things, whether that's hospitals or power production or water or anything like that. The tools that these guys have put together over many years are starting to trickle out onto the dark web, which means that regular people can get hold of them. So all of a sudden, we're not a government, we don't have to worry about that kind of stuff, but we're now being exposed to the kind of threats that governments used to be the only ones worried about until very recently. And the dwell time between when a tool is created and when it's unleashed upon regular people has become a lot lower. So that's what we're going to talk about now. So at the end of the day, there are 7.6 billion people in the world, and most of them are connected to the internet. The thing that you've got to remember with the internet and anything to do with social media or any kind of connection is that if you're connected to it, it's connected to you. So at the end of the day, there is a huge chunk of the world that has some kind of connection to you. And if your defences aren't right, if you don't have the right practices and procedures in place, then potentially you're going to fall afoul of that. In the old days, we weren't really too worried about this kind of thing because it tended to be, your quintessential kid in a hoodie sitting in his parents' basement. He was causing trouble just to kind of have some laughs, brag to his friends. That's all changed because organised crime has moved into town, and they have identified that it's an awful lot easier to tear money out of people sitting behind a computer screen than it is selling drugs on street corners. So that means that they can turn their pretty prodigious powers of money laundering and that kind of thing to be able to quickly exfiltrate money out of you and move that through their network and out to someone else. So that's where a lot of this has really started to ramp up because we are now under attack from people who really want to do us harm, criminals. Why do they want to do this? And the simple thing is, some people want to disrupt, some people want to cause destruction. So that's more your nation state kind of area. If they can disrupt the water supply, then that causes problem for the government and so forth. But at the end of the day, most of the things that we're exposed to, it comes down to dollars. So if there's money that's available on the table, these guys are going to take it. And if you've hidden it under the table or under your mattress, they're going to find it there too. The key here is that impact is where this whole mess is moving to. They're not really interested in just taking 20 bucks out of your pocket as you walk past on the subway. They are looking to cause as much damage as possible. And why this is a thing is because we have provided so much information to them that they can use to target us. So by being able to look at a LinkedIn profile, I can quite easily see the other people who work for your organisation. So it's pretty trivial for me to be able to send an email from one of those people to another one of those people and have it look like it's a legitimate email, which then may get someone to click on it, and then off we go. And they're doing more of that research. So rather than just a spray attack, spray and pray, they used to call it, where they would just send emails saying, click here because your ATO payment has been delayed. People would click on that or not click on that. They started to get better at telling that it wasn't real. Now they're doing research on you as a person and trying to find out, how can I get the most out of George? And using social media and the profiles and the information that you've put up there is how they tend to do that. So there's a couple of laws that we like to talk about in terms of cyber security. At the end of the day, if there's a vulnerability, someone is going to exploit it. The very first bank that was made, there was someone in that town who said, I'm going to rob that. And that kind of thing, this isn't about technology. This is just about vulnerability. If someone's vulnerable, there's going to be someone out there who's going to take advantage of that. The second law is that everything is vulnerable in some way. We can't assume that everything's safe. So huge corporations are spending millions of dollars on cybersecurity. If you're spending nothing, well, you're an easier target. It doesn't mean you have to spend millions. There's a middle ground there that perhaps we can look at as we go along. The big one, though, is that humans trust where they shouldn't. Why these scams are often so effective is because people want to trust. They naturally think that the email that they got from the ATO is legitimate. They think that the email they got from their boss is legitimate. And they tend to click on things. I promise you, there are people who, on their job description, it just says, must click on everything they see. And they're the people who tend to cause you problems. They usually got a name like Sharon. That's probably unfair. But at the end of the day, trust sucks. We assume that the light's going to turn on when we flip the switch. We assume that the tradie who comes to our house to fix the dishwasher is going to not rip us off. We have to question the infrastructure around us. It's our greatest vulnerability when it comes to cybersecurity. So because of this trust, people fall for the scams. We have to combat our natural inclination to trust. So the simple thing is, if you get an email, you don't know who it's from, and it's an invoice, just maybe ignore the email. Worst thing that they're going to do is maybe call you and say, how come you haven't paid the email? Haven't paid the invoice, in which case you can deal with it and maybe let them know that their emails look like scams. Same kind of thing if you get a phone call from someone purporting to be from the police saying that you may have been involved tangentially in a crime. Well, the police tend not to call you, they tend to come and knock on your door. So use that kind of trust no one kind of approach, and you'll tend to be okay. No one ever got that angry if you missed an email. They'll send it again if it's really important. So at the end of all this, with innovation comes an opportunity for exploitation. So we've got your Zuckerbergs and your Elon Musks of the world who are doing all these amazing things, and we get to take advantage of that, which is excellent. But it does open up the door for bad guys to come along and say, how can I get $1 out of this? So vigilance is the thing that's going to save you. So keep that in mind as we go along. In terms of common cyber threats, phishing is the one that people are probably most familiar with. Like several things, it began in Africa. The Nigerian prince who wanted to give you all his money. But obviously, those kind of things have evolved. However, those exact same scams with the Nigerian prince, he's still kicking, are still going because they still work. So at the end of the day, they are looking for ways that they can replicate things that have worked before, and they just keep using them because there's a new sucker born every minute. Whaling is the new kind of evolution from phishing. So an executive, in inverted commas, will send an email to an employee giving them a directive of some kind. It might be to transfer money from one account to another. The person who receives the email assumes that it's the person that it says it is, so transfers the money or ducks down to the shops and gets $500 iTunes cards, and then hands them over virtually, scratches off the number at the back to get the serial number, and then that information is then handed on to the bad guy. We found evidence of a scam where $1,800 worth of these gift cards, so $1,800 iTunes gift cards, were handed over by an Australian business. Within 2 hours, $700 had appeared in a Nigerian bank account. So that's how quickly these kind of scams work with once you've got organised crime in the background. It's one thing they know how to do, it's how to launder money. So the idea that you can maybe duck down to the police or call the bank and get it sorted out, once that money hits the account, it's gone. So the next big one, though, is business email compromise, or BEC. And that's where someone takes over your email account. Once they own your email account, they can do all kinds of interesting things. So one thing they might do is put, and we've seen this in real life, put a delay into your emails. So when you send an email, it sits in the outbox for a little while. Someone on the other side of the world, say in Nigeria, is sitting there waiting for those emails to be sitting in the outbox. They'll then open up the email from their end, adjust the banking details of the invoice that you're sending out, and then let the email get sent. So the person who receives the email gets the bill, pays the money, and you're none the wiser that that's been adjusted. Now, on small accounts, that would be pretty annoying, maybe even painful. This particular scam was very big about 18 months ago in the real estate game. So the kind of money that we're talking about here was the escrow accounts for businesses that were homes that were changing hands. So literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, again, once that money hits a bank account in Australia, organised crime steps in. They have a network of people who will go and withdraw cash from ATMs at 7-Elevens and so forth, collate all that money. They'll duck down to the local Tiffany's and buy themselves some jewellery or a nice Rolex. Someone then gets on a plane and goes to Malaysia. At Malaysia airport, they hand off the jewels or the watches to somebody there, who then goes and fences them off to a source that does that kind of thing. Money then hits Western Union and appears in the bank account of the dude in Nigeria. So they reckon that about something like 40%, 40 to 45% of the money that is stolen ends up there. 45% of 200 grand is still a pretty good earn. So these kind of scams are very, very effective because they just sit there in the background and just watch until they can make a strike. The next one's ransomware, which a lot of people have heard of. Maybe some people in the audience have actually been hit by this, where you click on an email, the computer is compromised in such a way where all of the documents, all the photos, your MyOb database, everything is encrypted and all locked up. And then they ask money to, usually in Bitcoin, which is untraceable, to be able to get that information back. This kind of thing is massive, because it is untraceable. You can buy kits on the dark web for not much money, hundreds of dollars, where you can kick off your own attack on whatever database of people that you have. You might be a member of the local football club, and maybe your son didn't get picked for the game. So you decide to select all the people on the list and then send them off a ransomware thing and see if you can get a couple of grand out of it. So it really is that simple. And then the advanced persistent threats are more the targeted ones we were talking about earlier. So that's where someone is looking to get control of things that you own. So that might be something as simple as a camera that looks over the loading dock of your business. It could be all the computers and modems and everything else that you've got in your business. They call it persistent threats for a couple of reasons. First of all, they're persistent to get in. They've done the research. They really want to get something out of you. But they also persist over long periods of time. So they might sit there for weeks or months monitoring everything that's going on, finding out who's who in the zoo, making sure they've got control of all the different elements, and then they press the button and wipe everything out. And then your business stops. And that's exactly what happened to, I think it was Cadbury's a couple of years ago. Their entire operation just stopped. And it was hundreds of thousands of dollars that they needed to pay to get out of it. So that's kind of a bit of a précis of the common cyber threats.
So
Stefan, is there anything you want to cover off there?
Yeah. Before you move on, just on that, because again, in one way or another, we know someone or have heard of someone, and you know, we're managing plenty of businesses and their journey, and we have in the last year or so had clients that have been in one way or another compromised in any one of these areas, particularly the Trojan, clicked on the wrong email. Holy shit! Now what? And the whole reboot is just full on drama. So, is there anything that you could suggest, or in recent times you've seen, or could share with us here today, Pat, as to is there a tell sign? Is there a component of an email that might look a little, or that looks a little different, but is it different? Can I pause? Is there a tactic to pause before I click? Is there something that you could tell us you've seen, and or as a trend recently, and or what could we do if something's, I don't know, just give us some feedback on that.
Yes, that's a really good question, because the beauty of the scam from the bad guy's point of view is that you have to be right every single time. Every single time. They have to be right once. So they'll just keep firing these things at you. So in some ways, you think, well, this is a bit of a losing battle. They're going to get through eventually. But there are things that you can do. So first of all, vigilance is the first one. Really kind of sit back before you click something. Do I actually know who that person is? They're talking to me like I know them, but do I actually know them? The next one is if the logos aren't right, if the grammar is a bit off, especially if it's somebody that you do deal with. So this email is purporting to come from Stefan. Is that the way Stefan actually writes? Does he not use capitalization, or does he not use punctuation as he goes? So those kind of things can kind of make your spidey senses tingle a little bit. And you want to kind of train yourself to act on that before you click, rather than after you click and you go, ooh, did I do something terrible? So you don't want to have that sinking feeling in your stomach when you go, actually, I don't actually bank with the Commonwealth Bank, so why would I click on a password reset for that? So there's those kind of things that you can do. So that's behavioural. And there are certainly some, and we talk about it a bit later on, about security awareness training. I believe that's the most critical thing that a small business can do, is have every single person from the top down, every person in the business be put through consistent and ongoing cybersecurity training. It's not a huge
and when you
deal.
say consistent, Pat, when you say consistent, are you thinking once a month, once a quarter, once a year? What are you thinking in today's real world?
Yeah, I think it needs to be front of mind. So what we find with the kind of security training that we do, and we do a campaign of fake phishing emails that we send to try and get some kind of understanding of how exposed a particular business is, or how vulnerable perhaps their staff are to clicking on things that they shouldn't. So we put them through some security training, where little videos usually, and at the end there's a little quiz, 3 or 4 questions. The whole thing takes maybe 3 or 4 minutes. And we find that the level of susceptibility after that decreases massively. 6 weeks on, it's back up where it started. People just forget. I mean, people are busy, and I understand that. So what we suggest is that a monthly program, again, it's only a couple of minutes per person per month. It'll nag at you. The particular one we use nags at you until you've done it. It's a little video that goes for a couple of minutes and then a quiz. Tends to kind of keep that level of vigilance up. The other thing that it does, though, is each one of the videos that we do is targeted around a specific area. So we had some ones specifically around COVID-19, because there was a lot of scams that were happening around that space. Click here to donate money or whatever. Click here to find out all the people in your area who may have it, right? People naturally are curious and they click on things. So some targeted videos around that, and also things to look out for when working from home. They're the kind of things that are big. So vigilance and training. And then the final one is making sure that you've got an email platform that provides you best of breed security in terms of filtering this stuff out before it gets there. So the particular solution that we use, which is all Microsoft based, not only will block bad things coming in, they will check all attachments to make sure that they're not, that they are what they seem. But even better than that, if something then turns out later to be bad, it can actually reach in and pull that out of your mailbox. So you're using all of the people who use Microsoft's email throughout the world. All that knowledge is all getting kind of put in through artificial intelligence and machine learning to best protect you. So you've got a technical solution there, and you've also got a procedural one.
Yeah. Okay. So that's some really good tips there, and I love the fact that you didn't say you need 5 hours of training every month or every day, because that's many people see that as a hindrance. But in fairness, ignorance to your peril. So if you could be freshened and conscious, and vigilance is one thing. My rule, as you know, Pat, if I don't recognize it, it's deleted. And not only is it deleted, it's then deleted totally from the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's my rule over the last 5 years since you and I did that massive training with the business. And knock on wood, I'm not going to say I'm bulletproof or our business is, but that's the rule. Now I have that rule. I'm confident my team has that rule, and you just got to take 3 seconds longer.
Yeah.
You're seeing Bob Smith as an email address, and then you see something that looks a little foreign after that.
Yeah.
And that's not real. Just delete it. If someone, as you said before, is desperate to get in touch with you, they'll find a way.
That's exactly right. I think that's the thing that people have to get around. Yeah, it's fine. It's okay if I didn't get your email.
The rigid dig people will definitely find a way to get to you in a decent and civil sort of way. All right, mate, over to you. Beautiful sharing there. Thank you.
Righto. So next, we're just going to quickly talk about the Starbucks scam, which is a pretty neat one. And this is something that we can kind of put in place straight away. And that is, don't ever use public Wi-Fi. Just don't do it. It's going to cause you all kinds of pain, whether that's in a hotel, it might be in a cafe. And this particular scam works. They call it the Starbucks free Wi-Fi, but this kind of thing happens all over the place. You'll go into a Starbucks, you'll sit down and you think, I'll just use the Wi-Fi here because then I don't have to use the data on my phone. So you click on the Starbucks free Wi-Fi that's in there, and you click on and you start doing your Facebook and your internet banking and all the stuff that you want to do while you have a coffee. Or you might be connected with your laptop and you're doing some work on the McKinsey report. Meanwhile, a criminal's in the corner on his laptop broadcasting a fake Wi-Fi network, because it turns out that Starbucks doesn't use Starbucks free Wi-Fi as their Wi-Fi name. So this little device that is literally the size of a pack of playing cards with a couple little aerials on it is actually pretending to be the Starbucks free Wi-Fi. And everything you've just done on that Wi-Fi network has actually been going through this guy's computer in the corner. So he's managed to capture all your information, all your passwords, all this kind of stuff. This happens every day. This particular unit here, you can buy from hack5.com. It costs $99. So for $99, and I don't know if you would like to set this up as a potential business offering for your clients, Stefan, but they could certainly create their own scams if they'd like. And we can help you with that.
We're going to stick with we have integrity as one of our highest points of value, mate.
Yeah, you got a lot of rules, Stefan.
$99 business plans, mate.
A lot of rules. So the next section, how is my business at risk? You can hide under the bed if you like, but it's not going to help. So at the end of the day, it comes down to numbers. It is a numbers game after all. They say cybersecurity is a numbers game, like Amway is. You just keep going and eventually someone's going to click on something. So 71% of breaches target small business. So the whole idea that we're not a target of small businesses is hooey. 59% of small businesses do not have any kind of contingency plan in place. That's the bit that keeps me up at night, because if you don't have a contingency plan in place when something goes wrong, you're putting out fires on the run. Putting a plan in place around the information that matters to you, or the plant that matters to you, whether that's machines or computers or whatever else, is pretty critical. We'll talk about that a bit later on as we go. And 60% of small businesses don't recover. So that's the bit that is kind of hidden in a lot of this. If you get breached in such a fashion that all of your stuff's locked up and you can't pay the ransom, or the ransom payment doesn't work, because don't forget, we're talking about dealing with criminals here, so they're not really that good at handing over the keys once they've screwed you over. A lot of these businesses can't recover because they just don't have the ability to, they can't recover their the lost orders that they've done, their reputation's in tatters because they won't be able to deliver on the stuff that they had to do. Their staff the whole thing is a disaster. So we do need to have something that we can put in place to make sure that we don't get into these stats. So there's two kinds of businesses, they reckon. This is from the FBI. There are those who have suffered a cybersecurity incident and those that will. It's as simple as that. Again, because so many attacks are being aimed at us, it kind of is a matter of when. So then it comes down to, what have I got in place to protect myself from that? So you go to all the efforts of putting up the walls, but if someone gets through, you have to have a baseball bat. And if they cause a bit of a ruckus, you need to be able to have a plan to get everything back up and going again. So that's backups. That might be an alternate place of business. There's all kinds of things that we can put in a plan to make sure that you can sleep at night.
Just on that, just letting everyone know that we're definitely in about 15 minutes time. We're going to be taking Q&A, and Pat's going to he's promised to stay back and answer as many questions as we need to. Please, there's plenty of questions, I'm sure, and this is a fairly it's such a hidden part of our business, but a crucial and non-negotiable part of our businesses. Definitely our life, if I was to extend that in terms of how it rates in the scale of seriousness. So, there should be plenty of questions and or ears pricking right now with some of this information. I know it's a little confronting, but I guess ignorance to your peril, and we don't want to see any of you being hurt and or ill prepared, and no one, including anyone on this in this meeting, is totally bulletproof, and we need to be vigilante and always on alert as to how can we be better. So yeah, questions to be asked, please do so. Please put them through the chat, and we'll address them in about 10 to 12 minutes. Thank you. Pat, over to you.
No worries. So next up, the thing that we hear most commonly from small businesses is that it's not me. This isn't going to happen to me because I don't have anything, so they can come at me if they want, but I'm going to be fine. Nothing can be further from the truth. You as a small business are in the sweet spot between individuals who don't have a lot of information and big business who spend a lot to protect themselves. So you're kind of a soft target. And because small businesses don't have sufficient defences, they haven't got the investment in security, they don't have the visibility into their network to know what's actually going on. And this is the key. If you are breached and you're a large business, all kinds of alarms go off to say that someone's in the network that shouldn't be, information's being taken out that shouldn't be, all this kind of thing. If you're a small business, you don't have those alarms. There's nothing to tell you that something untoward is happening. And I think that is something that it's so easy to put in place. It's not expensive, but you do have to start thinking about cybersecurity as something that's going to cost you money, because it's going to cost you money one way or the other. So it's better to be on the front end of it than trying to deal with it afterwards. Nation states, I'll touch on it very quickly. This is what the Prime Minister was talking about last week. We are under attack from nation states. Like I said at the outset, some of the tools that they use to get to have shots at each other kind of filter down and start to affect us. Special mention though of China, because China have a multi-year, as you can imagine, strategic plan, and there are businesses that or areas of business that they are looking to develop. If you happen to be one of those businesses, or a business in Australia that operates in that same area, you might be in the firing line. So the Chinese government may instruct some of their cyber actors to wipe out all the companies that make, for instance, light poles, because they're looking at moving into the light pole industry. So the way that would look is that they would disrupt your business in some way, so that you weren't able to fulfill orders, for instance. And all of a sudden it becomes a thing of, well, I need new light poles. I could go to this company, but I've heard that they're pretty bad and they often don't deliver on time. Or I could go to this Chinese company that's going to do it for cheaper. So that's a concrete example of how a nation actor can actually affect a small business just because you're at the wrong place at the wrong time. The next bit we'll quickly talk about then is the information that you put on social media. And I don't want to, this presentation so far has been a little bit sky is falling, and I apologise for that, but I do want to make sure that people are aware of the potential danger. The information that you put on social media, you really have to think about. So it's not very difficult to do a quick search on someone online and find out lots of information that you'd prefer that they didn't have. So for example, how many people know about your birthday because it's on Facebook? So the one thing that you cannot change about yourself, you've put out there to the public. It's not that difficult to find out your children's names and their ages because they're tagged in Instagram on posts. Same kind of thing with nicknames in comments. So keeping your information private is critical. Making sure you've got the right security on these accounts is really critical, because that's the thing that's going to protect you. You should be able to play in the little sandpit of your friends and have chats and do all that kind of stuff without any issues at all, so long as you've got the security settings right. We've got some guides about how we can do that to make sure that the security that's provided by Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, that you've got all those things turned on so that you're comfortable that your information is private from randos.
So just on that, Pat, because I guess that's a, look, I think we're all aware, and we get so caught up in the, I guess, you know, that it's part of life now to be in one way or another involved in social, or at least most of us are. And it's also for some of us, and as I see our guests here tonight, some of us have got some big profiles on social. What are, as it relates to 2021, what are some of your tips? Like literally, in the last week or so, I've had a numerous amount of requests, particularly on Facebook, from people who I know the name, but there's no photo. Like it's a
Yep.
faceless request. And I'm thinking, geez, I'm pretty sure let's just say, I'm pretty sure I'm friends with David already. Why is he asking me for another friend's request? So, you know, faceless, it's a name you know, and in fairness, it proves to be someone that's not David. But what do you recommend as a 2021 rule as it relates to social? Because it's one of those things that becomes subconscious. And again, I'm looking at some of the guests here tonight on the webinar, and we've got some big profiles on this sharing tonight. So what can you tell us as it relates to socials that will keep us at least one step protected?
It's all about security settings. So first of all, you must have two-factor authentication enabled on these different things. So that's not so much about the information leaking out, that's about bad guys getting in. So if you've got two-factor authentication, and all these platforms have it, you go into the security settings in the account part of the page. You can do it from your phone. You turn that on, it will send you a text when you go to log in. So that means someone can't log in as you on a device somewhere else, because they would have to have access to your phone. So that's a mandatory. Do that now while we're talking. The next one is, though, have a look in the privacy section of each of these apps, and you get to choose how much of your information is shared. So there will be stuff that's available to all the public. So that's usually just your initial photo, whether that's your face or a background or whatever. But then you may choose that only your actual private followers get access to everything else. My recommendation is you would definitely do that for most people, certainly for children. That's critical. Go and check your children's phones and make sure that all those privacy settings are switched up to the max. But in terms of accepting friend requests from people that you're not sure about, most people would have a pretty good idea of who their friends are. There's an argument to say that if I don't know you in real life, why would I want to connect with you on something like Facebook? So LinkedIn's a bit different because it's a bit it's more businessy. But I'd suggest that the rule of thumb is if I don't know you in real life, if we're not friends in real life, I'm probably not going to want to connect with you on Facebook. I'll find a different way of being able to connect with you if I need to. So that's kind of probably, and I'm not too tinfoil hat about this. However, my real birthday is not anywhere online. And I don't even have my real name on Facebook. So I'm probably not a good example.
It is one of those things, isn't it? I mean, it's just, and again, what we don't want to do, or what we're trying our best not to do in this sharing, is freaks people so much that they, they certainly go back into a cocoon and go into a different version of isolation, let's call it. So I think just be aware, be conscious, be one step ahead. Just think it through. Is having 10,000 people liking you on Facebook really that important? If 9,900 of them are potential, are they really your friend? So over to you, Pat. Let's keep on moving.
No worries. So keep that in mind, just about what you put on the socials. So then we move into the where the rubber hits the road a bit. How is it that we're going to protect the business? Now, everything up to this point has been doom and gloom. And again, I apologise about that to a point. But keep in mind that most people only act on this stuff after there's been a breach, after they've been compromised in some way. So they say that your house is the safest the day after you've been burgled, because that's when you go and get the cameras and change the locks and make sure all the windows have bolts on them. So obviously doing that beforehand is better. It's much cheaper to pay for the fix beforehand than after the fact. And the worst time to discuss any kind of disaster recovery or continuity plan is while you're in that mode. So spend some time over the next week or so just thinking, well, what would happen if we were compromised? What kind of plans do we have in place? What's our plan B for a lot of this stuff? Now, if you look at it from that point of view, it's actually not that difficult, because what we're talking about doing really is risk management at the end of the day. So there are a couple of kind of basic rules that we can look at. If you look at any particular part of your business that matters to you, you can identify what is it that you need to protect about it. So you might have a particular computer that is used for all of your design stuff. It's the only one, it might be the only Mac that you have in the office, for instance. What happens if that doesn't turn on tomorrow? What happens if that's compromised or smashes or just catches fire? Well, what are you going to do? What are you doing to protect that at this point? Well, you might have backups. You might have an old Mac in the cupboard that you could bring out and use in some kind of way. Putting a plan around each of these things is what we're talking about. And if you do it on that micro level, where you just say, this particular thing, I've got a plan for it now, and it might be a piece of paper, it might be a couple of paragraphs. When something goes wrong, you go to that and you can decide what to do next. And the next thing is to be able to detect, and this is what I was talking about before, being able to identify when something is wrong. So if you know what normal looks like, and you've got some kind of alerting system that can look at logs as they're happening and say, people are logging on at 3 a.m, that normally doesn't happen, I might raise that as an alarm. And then your IT company or whoever it is who's looking after your security can then have a look at that, pass some kind of test about whether it seems reasonable or not, and then push that forward for further review. Respond. What kind of continuity plans can be enacted during an incident? If you're in a cyber incident and your internet isn't working because you're being bombarded by computers in Iran, what's your plan B for that? Do you have a wireless 4G card that you can plug in to get the business up and going again on a different internet connection? Do you have backups of your website that you can just press a button and make go live in a different spot? There's those kind of things. And then finally, if you do have a disaster, what kind of plans have you got to get up and going again? What kind of time period are you talking about there? Because that all kind of comes into play. So the next step then is to kind of look at cybersecurity as risk management. And if you do that, you kind of take the technology out of it. It's not a technology issue. It's a risk issue. And you as business owners deal with risk all the time. So this is something that you are absolutely able to deal with on your own. Perhaps with some advice from the particular technical sides, but most of it is just about risk management. And the final thing I really wanted to talk about today is about the human firewall. Given it is the, as we say, the PEBCAC, the problem exists between the keyboard and chair. There's that person who has been employed to click on every email that they get.
What did you just call that?
PEBCAC, PEBCAK. Problem exists between keyboard and chair.
I love that.
So,
Nikki, can you put that up on the screen? I want to make sure I come back to that. Go on.
So this is what we we're talking before about the cybersecurity training. Investing in the staff to make sure that they understand their place in this vulnerability kill chain. If an email comes in and a person has they've been given permission by the business to be able to say, you know, I'm just not going to open that. I'm not comfortable as the accounts person. I'm just not going to open that email. I know I'm not going to get in trouble from the boss. Or the email that comes in from the boss to say, can you please go and buy iTunes cards? Well, I know that's not the kind of thing that he would do, and I'm just going to call him and find out if that's okay. Those kind of things is what we're talking about, giving your staff permission to be that human firewall between you and the bad guys, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who are going to save you from that. Now, there are other things that we can do in terms of making sure your computers are patched, that you have a good password policy, unique passwords for each thing, multi-factor authentication turned on everywhere. They're all technical solutions, but what I really wanted to focus on today is what kind of things can we put in place that are procedural or in terms of people to kind of get the best bang for our buck. And that's where that kind of works. And then to wrap up then, you got to remember that you are a target and you're a bit juicy because you are a small business. So you do have some kind of access to funds. They will do research on you and find out if you have the ability to pay and how much you can pay. You need to question everything. You need to trust no one in terms of any kind of cyber dealings that you have with email and so forth. Your defenses aren't good enough, and they probably won't be, which is why your staff are your best hope. Now, I know that some of you will be looking around and thinking of your staff list, and that might make you shiver in your boots a bit, but spend some time on them because they're the ones who are going to protect you on the front line. And a key takeaway, not to do with the presentation, but just good life advice. Always try to be nice. Never fail to be kind.
Love that. Beautiful. Just again, just very enlightening and very, very appropriate in terms of the last not only 4 months where people's, I guess, access to PEBCAC has certainly taken another level, you know, where people are a lot more in front of their screens, a lot more business being done in front of their screens, and you know, the virtual world and the digital world, which has been forced upon us in the recent 3 to 4 month period. But more timely is the last 7 to 8 days where we've certainly been alerted to as a country, and there's plenty of bigger examples than just small business, where there's been some immense ramifications for people being underprepared or ill-prepared. So, ignorance to your peril. I guess as it relates, and there's a question up on the chat room here, which I think is a really good one. Password managers. You know, every business in one way or another has a central point, or should or could or may need to consider a central point. So passwords ain't scattered everywhere. Central point for passwords. What can you give as a 30-second sort of feedback on how to do that better? VPNs. What's your feedback on that?
The passwords, they're a real hobby horse of mine. People tend to have the same password for everything, and that is where people really come unstuck. So there are bajillions of passwords that have been hacked around the world that exist in databases that bad guys have. So if you, for instance, a couple of years ago, the Marriott chain was hacked, 170 something million passwords got leaked out. So if you ever went to a Marriott chain hotel, and there's lots of them, and you signed up for their program so you could get a free breakfast the next day or whatever, you would have probably put in your email address and the password that you always use. So when that got leaked out, that username and that password are now in the wild. So what the bad guys do is they do what's called a password spray attack, where they just get that username and the password and they just go and shoot it against every single online platform that there is. So if you use that same username and password to get into your bank, then they have access to your bank. If they have access to your email because you used it for that email, your regular email as well, that might give them access to being able to change your Facebook password. And once I've changed your Facebook password and I own your Facebook account, well, now I can find out all your private stuff in your Facebook account. That might be enough to be able to ring up the bank and say, can I please, I've got a new address. Can I please get a credit card sent to my new address, please? Now, all of these kind of things are easily fixed by having a password manager. Now, we've got the one we recommend is 1Password. There's another one that's very good called LastPass. All of those can be used.
These are apps?
Correct. Yeah. So they're an app that you can install on everything. It manages all your passwords for you.
So I'm a
cynic.
cynic.
Can work in a team as well.
So I'm a cynic, right? I'm thinking, hang on.
Yep.
Well, so you're asking me to put all my passwords on an app in the digital world. How does that work?
Yep. So you are putting all your eggs in one basket. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good basket. So these baskets are peer reviewed. They are fully secure, encrypted left and right. You can have special permissions on them to say, if someone enters the password wrong 10 times, delete the whole database. There's all kinds of cool stuff that you can do. But because the benefits that you get out of it by having one really good password that protects all your other ones is that encrypted database can then be shared amongst your different devices. So I have passwords that are comfortably 30 characters long that I've never seen. I just copy and paste them and everything just works. So not one of them is the same as the other. They're long and they're scary, and it'll save you bacon. Absolutely.
What were the name of those apps, just very quickly?
1Password, as in the number 1 password, is very good on Apple devices, whether it's iPhones or whatever, but definitely works on everything else. So that's the one I personally use. Another one that's very big in the corporate space is LastPass, as in it's the last password you'll ever need. Where you can comfortably share passwords between different people. But whatever you do, get one.
So just as it relates to this part, one more question on this. Should we have a password policy in our business as it relates to our teams? Should we have a time sensitive, like every 60 days, every 90 days, every 30 days, like some of the CRMs are really good at this, where they force you to change passwords, and you can't go ever back to one you've used in the last 4 years, right? So is that a good policy in your opinion? It's
absolutely critical that every business, as part of their cybersecurity journey, creates a whole stack of policies. One of them specifically is a password policy. So there should be very clear rules about what passwords can be used, or how passwords are generated, how long you keep them for, the fact that there is a multi-factor authentication that goes with that. The needle has moved a little bit on the changing it every 3 months or whatever. I would personally prefer that you have a better password and it's stored in a password manager than that you have a relatively easy password that you change all the time. People are not good at creating passwords. Your brain just isn't designed for that. Computers are great at it, so let them do it. As long as you've got a method and a policy around the way that it's created, the way that they're stored, that's what's going to save you.
So a couple of months ago when we were having lunch, you were writing a white paper on passwords and some of this cybersecurity stuff. Is that finished?
Yeah.
Because I know you're busy, mate. Have you finished the white paper on this?
Yes, but can I say that I've done a lot of work on this for my clients.
Mate, can I just warn you, you should know me better. When you say but...
Yeah, the but is that it turns out the one thing that the government's quite good at is their cybersecurity frameworks that they've put in place. So if you visit the Australian Cybersecurity Centre website, they've got some fantastic resources.
Rob, can you put that up on the chat, please, for everyone?
I would definitely recommend that out of this, that you go back to your IT teams in the coming days and weeks and maybe ask these harder questions of them. How is it that we are prepared? Spend a few minutes, and they've got really good guides for small business people that aren't too technical.
Hold for a tick. So we're speaking to Patrick Kissane from BurgerIT. Patrick and his business has been at the forefront of IT, managed services, literally speaking, cybersecurity tools and weapons against bad people. In saying that, he knows he's never ever ahead of that curve. He can only be as ahead as the day allows him. So BurgerIT, Patrick Kissane, sharing some magnificent stuff with us here tonight. So if you want to reach out to Patrick, Patrick, what's the best email for you?
To be patrick@burgerit.com.au, or you can find me online.
So Patrick at burgerit.com.au. And I strongly recommend, if you do have IT managers and or people in your business that are responsible for the IT component, or if you are responsible as the leader in your business for the IT component, I strongly recommend that you do have an affiliation, a connection, a go-to external expert, no different to Business Benchmark Group. For what we do with every one of you in your business, we are a go-to reference for business growth and business development. People like Patrick and BurgerIT specifically, they are so focused on having you right up to speed, right up to date on a smell of an oily rag. Now, what does that mean? It doesn't mean they're cheap. They're just not pimping the ride as it relates to what's needed, when it's needed, and ultimately planning the journey, as Patrick just mentioned, the cyber security journey. So very, very important. Sorry to cut you off there, mate. I just want to make sure that people know that you are a busy guy. Your team is full on busy. I love the look of your new office too, mate. It looks magnificent. Well done, and congratulations on making that happen. And you and your team, I know you've been left, right, and centre very busy, but you are accessible. And I know you're just like your last little slide there in the presentation, you're a decent human being as well, and you certainly you've been a massive again support for my business, our business, and our community. And never are we feeling so safe that we're ignorant. We're always so safe that what else do we need to do, Patrick? It was only 2 nights ago that Patrick pinged myself and Nikki saying, hey, there's a few lights going on here with some activity. Are you guys on this, or should I be sending the SWAT team around, literally? And it was Nikki and I just compacting some additional work for in preparation of some stuff we're doing at BBG. So that's how, again, and Patrick's business is based in the very southeast part of Victoria, otherwise known as a place that stands alone. You need to go over a bridge to get to it. It's called Phillip Island. So, and
we are thinking of getting rid of that bridge if too many people keep coming onto it.
No, mate, we've got COVID-19 in the north and the west, mate. You're safe where you are, mate. Don't burn the bridge yet. But just continuing with the cyber bits. Any further questions? So, I guess this sharing is recorded. It'll be up on the resource centre at Business Benchmark Group. Please feel free to come along there. If you're a client, a community member, then you know you have special access to that. If you're not, we're going to make this accessible to everyone else. Is there any final word from you, Pat? I just want to make sure that we've got every question. I've got one more question to go through, and I'll come back to that. Is there any final word from you as it relates to what you've shared tonight?
I think the big one, Stefan, is to make sure that you have a good think about this in a time of quiet. You don't want to be making policy changes on the run. Sit down with your executive team on Monday next week, maybe as a separate meeting, not part of your normal kind of whip, and say, well, where are we exactly? What kind of things do you think we should be looking at? Take that kind of fresh page approach. It's possible that the IT team that you have at the moment are really up on this. Don't be afraid to look at the whole cybersecurity component as separate from your regular computers. It kind of is a separate set of skills. And that's why our particular business has focused on this. There are other businesses like us that have done that. But I think that it really needs to have a very clear and level-headed thought process from the executive team down to make sure that you're as best prepared as you possibly can be.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And there's one final bit, which I think you've just really, really probably precursor the question, but what are the top 3 things I should do tonight to protect my business, but most importantly, my home?
The beauty of the kind of messages that we had in tonight's presentation is that it's not about just your business. You can take a lot of these thoughts home, because you also don't want your wife or husband clicking on emails that they shouldn't, because that's going to make a real mess at home. You want to make sure that your kids are properly protected. So if they are on social media, take a couple of minutes to sit down with them and go through the privacy settings. They may not even be aware that some of those are open. And if you've got kids and they're, posting photos of themselves around the pool with to their friends, and someone outside is able to see that, that's obviously not great. So making sure that you've got the right privacy settings turned on, that you've got multi-factor authentication turned on, that has to be the biggest takeaway of tonight. And really spend some time thinking about where you're exposed and what kind of things you should be focusing on to make sure that you are as best prepared as possible for the continuing onslaught of bad guys trying to get at your stuff.
And although we didn't name it, there were aspects of what you shared tonight, specifically around that social side as it relates to identity theft. And the last thing you want in life, in my opinion, would be identity theft to be going on. That would be that would be a difficult thing to manage.
It destroys people. It really does. I do know of a guy who had his identity stolen. He had no idea. He went to the bank to do his big reno of his house that they've been planning for years. Knock back, sorry, you've got outstanding debts. And he had no idea it was about a telephone service for a share house in Geelong. He'd never lived in Geelong. Now, even though they got to the bottom of all that, every time he goes to the bank now, he has to take a sheaf of papers this thick explaining why his credit record is a shambles. It really does destroy people.
Patrick, I want to thank you and the time you've afforded us, and I love what you're doing, and you're true to your craft, and you're genuine and authentic, and you're one step ahead, and you look after the people you serve. You're a phenomenal businessman, and I'm proud to have you in our community, and I'm also proud to have you as an alumni and board of directors 12, one of the initial group, one of the first groups ever. So
it's been a great journey, and having you in my corner has been great, Stefan. Thank you to you and all your team.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everybody. And this sharing will be on our resource centre at the Business Benchmark Group website. Thank you. Good evening, and stay strong. Be safe.